Hello everyone, I'm Ji Myeong-gil and welcome to In the Newsroom, where we bring you the behind-the-scenes look on how we deliver the news to you. The second week of June has certainly been an eventful one, and our Hwang Sung-hee is going to bring us the rundown of some of the top stories that made headlines this week. Sung-hee, hello.
Greetings to you, Ji-hye. Another week has flown by and here I am again with this week's headlines. A lot has been going on in the economic sector as the global economy seems to be feeling the impact of the eurozone debt crisis. So this week, Spain begins its efforts to raise up to 2 billion euros in bonds. This comes as a test of market confidence in the country's ability to rescue its ailing banking sector. Top officials from G7 countries convene an emergency meeting amid intensifying economic shakiness in Spain and Greece. The meeting, however, ends without a clear plan or even a joint statement. The Korean economy grows 2.8% in the first quarter of this year despite the eurozone crisis, but growth in the country's gross national income slows down due to worsening terms of trade and soaring oil prices. Korea's top finance chief Park Jae-won unveils plans to use more state-run funds to stimulate the country's economic growth as the eurozone crisis begins to take its toll on the Korean economy. A once-in-a-lifetime celestial event takes place as the Venus eclipse passes by on Wednesday morning, and those lucky enough were able to see the planet in broad daylight. The new National Assembly fails to convene its first plenary meeting amid disputes between the ruling and main opposition parties on who will chair key parliamentary committees, raising concerns that the legislature could remain dormant for months. At least 180 victims of forced labor during Japan's colonial rule over the Korean peninsula are preparing for legal action against Japanese firms. The move follows a recent ruling by Korea's Supreme Court that Japanese companies concerned must compensate for Korean victims forced into labor. And more killings in Syria. A new massacre in a small Syrian town kills nearly 80 people, half of them women and children. This comes just days after more than 100 people died in the Hula massacre and just hours before the UN Security Council resumes talks to try and contain the crisis. I don't know just what kind of stories will be making headlines next week. I'm guessing more stories on the eurozone and probably more updates from Syria, but whatever they'll be, I'll be here with more updates next week. Take it away, Ji-hye.
Well, Myeong-gil, Connie, it's good to be out, right?
Yeah,
Beautiful
it's very
weather.
Nice. Summer's starting finally.
Yeah, finally, it's well into June. So I think this week we have been very heavily dependent on the weather conditions since we had the Memorial Day as well as the transit of Venus. But I just wanted to ask, did anyone get to see it?
Well, I saw it on the news, but not with my own eyes, so.
I know. I think it happened like 7 in the morning, right? 7-ish?
Very early.
Yeah, I was not awake.
Right, so it was very sunny here in Korea, but not so much on the other side of the continent in Europe, and you must know better.
Yeah, I think it wasn't that sunny in Europe, as you might think, because
Economy-wise, right?
Yeah, economy-wise, because Europe is undergoing so much trouble now these days in dealing with, especially the bank problems in Spain. So, they had the sudden round of talks, the teleconference talks among the finance ministers of the G7 heads and the finance ministers. So.
With the Eurozone's debt crisis threatening to tear the bloc apart, Germany is pushing for closer fiscal integration. Germany wants to set up a central authority to manage the Eurozone's finances and give new powers to the European Commission, European Parliament, and the European Court of Justice. Germany is pressing Madrid to accept aid under the bloc's rescue funds so that it can recapitalize its financial institutions. Meanwhile, the goal is for the EU leaders to agree to develop a roadmap for fiscal union at the June 28th EU summit.
Did they come up with any concrete measures of some sort?
Well, no joint statement was made, but they did agree to go ahead with the financial and fiscal union of Europe in order to keep on reviving the economy. So first, there wasn't that kind of wanted result from the conference, but they still are trying to develop and monitor what will happen within the European economy until the next meeting Well, France and Italy will meet on the June 14th, followed by the G20 summit in Mexico. So they're trying to they'll be just trying to keep monitoring and just keep on talking about how to resolve these issues.
I guess the big question is how this is all going to affect Korean economy. Any say on that?
As of now, I don't think there's like a direct effect on the Korean economy, even though there's some rise or some lowering of the euro and the things like that. But well, currently, I don't think there has been any kind of major side effects.
Yeah, I think we, like you said, we are just keeping an eye on it. Like earlier in this week, President Ji Myeong-gil also called on the government to keep an eye on it and come up with thorough measures to against any of the worst case scenarios. So yeah, probably that's right. Well, moving on now to Connie. I was very much intrigued by your story on Korean Wave, Hallyu.
Yes.
Yeah, tell us more about it.
Well, as everyone knows, Hallyu, the Korean wave, it seems like it's taking over the world or seeping into every continent and onto every TV set, computer. But there's a recent survey by the Korean government that show that 60% of the foreigners interviewed or surveyed think that Hallyu or the Korean wave will end in the next 3 to 4 years. I talked with the Minister of Culture.
The best
Korea.
person to answer these questions.
Right, and so he talks about how, Hallyu, people think of Hallyu in different ways. Like some people think, Korean music or drama, but there's also, Korean foods or Korean language. And that's, booming too, because people, they first listen to the music and they're like, oh, I want to understand what they're saying. So they get interested in the culture and the language. And so, I think in the next couple of years, it's going to be important to promote Korean traditional culture.
So what did ministers say in regards to the sustainability and expansion of Korean Wave? What were some of the points that you thought was interesting?
He was very hopeful. He was saying that it's important for Korea to promote traditional elements of Korean culture, like food, clothing, different traditional activities, and not just promoting, the way, traditional culture in its essence, but kind of combining that with, modern or contemporary styles. And so the culture minister was talking about we need to kind of expand what is considered Hallyu, and also be more accepting of other cultures and other traditions. And so it's like a cultural exchange. So he said, he's very hopeful about expanding Hallyu in the next few years.
Interesting. Thank you very much. And by the looks of it, it looks like Korean Wave looks promising. So fingers crossed. So any stories that you guys are going to come up with that we should be looking out for next week?
Before even I came to work, I kept getting phone calls from the international airport, one of the world's best airports in the world, and of course Korean Air. They have the A380, the humongous, the biggest airplane in the world.
Is that the newest one?
Yeah, with the 2-floor. It's like high as a 6-story building. And
The airplane?
Yeah, and it's like it's only like few commercial airliners have the A380. So I'll be doing something about that. So I hope.
So you're going to get on the plane and check the
you
the
are?
new things out.
Yes, I'm trying to get on the plane and do some cool stand-ups even outside.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that very
Yeah,
much.
looking forward to that. Well, how about you?
Well, I'm also gonna look into more of expanding Korean wave and Korean culture, and so there are a lot of foreigners who come to Korea to learn English, and so I'm gonna look more into that.
Lovely. People coming to Korea to learn English.
to learn English.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Well, lots to look forward to next week. So keep up the good work, guys. Thank you again.
Thank you.
We're going to the National Cemetery. Today is Memorial Day, so today there is a lot going on. We have a live link up at 10 a.m. just in time for the Memorial Day service where President Ji Myeong-gil is going to be there. We also have to do a news package focusing on the families and the war veterans who are there to pay their tributes. 최초로 받아야 되니까요.
어디죠?
아리랑 TV요.
저기 있죠?
네. Well, there's a lot of security, as you can see, because the president's going to be here. So they're really, just being tough on the security. I need to go get a media pass for the people who are already registered. Oh, 안 돼. I'm just getting my script ready for my 10 o'clock link up. So I'm just using these little times that I have, and I write whenever there's a chance or whatever where I'm just waiting for people to arrive. So I carry my laptop, I sit on the grass, I write, I sit on the sides of the streets and I write. So it's right now around 9:03. We already sent out a list of the names that the camera people, the crew, a month ago. So those who are not on the list cannot enter. I'll have to say goodbye now because I have to set the camera up and get ready for my 10 o'clock live. So I'll see you guys when I come out. Bye.
라이브는 잘 끝났어요?
Yeah, we had some technical difficulties doing the 10 o'clock live because of the wireless, the 3G network was not working. Because usually when a president enters, they cut off all the telecommunication services. So we ended up doing the live outside near the streets, just overlooking the National Cemetery. So that was an event. So we're gonna head over to the cemetery. We're gonna talk to some of the bereaved families and relatives of the veterans and people who came to pay their respects, and hopefully I'll get some interesting stories out of them. Oh, it's a really hot day. Usually I carry a hat or a umbrella, because usually I'm out on the field and there are no shades. So it's a very hot Wednesday morning, and but it's better than raining. I'm actually typing up my stand-up right now. So I'm walking and typing as I'm moving, because I need to do things. My goal is to finish the story as soon as possible. Oh, I'm looking for my interviewees and kind of looking for people that I can interview. I'm looking for a family, probably a male in his mid-50s, 60s. Someone who's a regular visitor, someone who has an interesting story. 안녕하세요. 저희 아리랑 TV에서 나왔는데요. 21살 때 베트남 전쟁 파병 갔다가
한국 장병들의 정말 열을 그리려.
My focus is to get the narratives of the people and the stories of their families and why it's important to remember these patriots. And I think it's easier for the viewers to relate to real stories of real people. So that's why I'm trying to get. 형제가 많으셨어요? 장남이셨어요? It's really emotional, but I try not to get too much involved emotionally, because it's really painful to hear those stories, and just losing someone that you love is so painful and difficult. But I think it's a very strong narrative, so I really want to make sure that this gets into my story.
On a hot, balmy Wednesday morning, thousands of young adults stood in remembrances
In front of the names of the 54,000 fallen soldiers who are resting in peace here at the National Cemetery.
Okay, so welcome back, Kanyons.
Thank you.
How was
Did you
your
guys
trip to
miss
Japan?
me last week?
Of course.
Oh, I'm sure Hanu did a great job.
Did actually.
Yeah, my trip to Japan. I mean, I was with the Korean Broadcast Journalists Association, traveling to Japan to learn more about disaster reporting. So, reporting from disaster-hit areas and learn more about disaster management in Japan. And yeah, we learned a lot. It was a week of just lots of training and exercises, drills, and lectures, and field experiences. In fact, on the second day I was there, I actually felt earthquake for the first time
No
in my
way.
life.
How big was the magnitude of
I think the U.S. Geological Survey put it at 5.3.
5.3? That's pretty
That's
big,
pretty-
actually.
Yeah,
strong.
but in Tokyo, because we were like inland, it didn't feel, that much because it was quite distant from the epicenter. But I felt it, and
Was it the first time?
It was my first time ever. Have you ever?
No, I didn't.
No.
It, guys, it feels like how when you're on a plane you feel turbulence sometimes. It feels like that, and. Just that day, we had gone to one of those disaster training places, and we learned that they told us that the best place to go, aside from running out the door, would be the bathroom because there's nothing to fall on you. So I left my roommate. She was sleeping. It was 1:40.
So it was late at night.
It was like 1:36 a.m. I got up and I ran to the bathroom by myself because in Japan bathrooms are small, and yeah, I was known as the traitor who left her roommate to die basically and run for her life.
Right, like, so Connie, you went to the field trips and you checked out the sites. How did it look?
Gee, it was it was pretty shocking. We went to the fishing town of Ishinomaki, and that's the biggest hit area from the tsunami. And still there, the wreckages and rubbles of the tsunami, like more than a year ago, still remains. There's quite a strong odor from everything, and everything is just gone. It's as if there was a town and it just disappeared. I think 3,000 people died within 45 minutes. And another 3,000 remain missing. So they're still recovering from it, but they're still actually working on the cleanup work. There's so many, rubbles and garbages that they need to, take care of before they can actually rebuild their lives. So
it's a ghost town now.
Basically, yeah.
Was there any new tips that you can share with us if we are to go to disaster-stricken site and we have to report there? What should we look out for?
Well, we went to NHK, and they are the biggest public broadcaster in Japan, and they're in charge of disaster broadcasting. And they told us that the first thing you should keep in mind is don't just jump into disaster hit areas. Don't just go there without thinking, because NHK was saying how a lot of the footages that they got from the tsunami, as well as the Fukushima radiation nuclear power plant disaster, they have 450 remote controlled cameras set up all across Japan. So those footages were from those cameras. So basically their headquarters were in the NHK headquarters in Tokyo, and they got their footages from there. And
So a person was not behind the camera, so it automatically reported it. Oh, wow, okay.
And then the crew went in with, I believe, nearly 20 helicopters. And what really struck me as interesting is that the NHK director said the point of their broadcasting is not to, blow up the scale of the disaster and panic everyone, but to save one more life. So basically, within 20 seconds, from an earthquake or tsunami or anything from the weather agency, the anchor is supposed to automatically read from the prompter, which automatically resets itself and just injects the numbers or the scale of the earthquake and
telling people where to go, warnings of where to go and hide or whatnot. So it's for them to save one more life. Yeah, and what they thought was rather, I guess, a little bit on the downside is how Western media, they focus on the essentiality or just the extremeness of disasters, and they really exaggerate it so that they can get one more viewer, one more reader.
So what did the people say about the role that we as global broadcasters should play in case of these disastrous catastrophes?
Right. They said that their role would be to evacuate one more person, one more foreigner, so that they can save their lives and return home safely. And that comes before anything in disaster broadcasting.
Good point. Wow, lots to be learned.
Yeah,
thanks for sharing that with us. And of course, welcome back.
Thank you.
How about Katie? Share with us.
Korea today, if I remember correctly, on Tuesday there was a cabinet meeting, and the ministers were dressed in quite a different way, other than they usually wear these formal suits, with the ties and everything. But this week it was different. They were wearing something called 휘들옷. And I think it's something made from a hemp fabric. It's also known as sambe in Korean. It's just a lot lighter, and you don't have to wear a tie. So you see, I don't know, I brought some pictures because I thought it was interesting. You see President Ji Myeong-gil over here, and you see Park Jae-won, the finance minister, and they're all wearing this 휘들옷. They look really light. So I think the whole point is to, the government is encouraging office workers to wear some kind of light clothing instead of turning on the air conditioning. So it's a way to conserve energy. Yeah, exactly. And here we have Seoul Mayor Park Won-soon. It's also called.
Oh, he's posing.
It's quite shocking, right? I mean, I like Mayor. I like the mayor.
Right,
so.
yeah, he looks very confident and happy in his casual clothing.
Yeah, so it's going to be trend of this summer. Office workers, you're allowed to wear shorts, I think, as long as you have the right matching shoes. Well, minus the socks, maybe.
Oh, that's very interesting. Welcoming news.
Yeah, I think it's a good move. And we actually did have our trend expert Kim Chan-ju joining us in the studio on Tuesday to tell us about this cool biz look.
Was he wearing it?
She wasn't wearing it, but Young and our other hosts, Young, Jason, and Steve, they were all wearing they were trying out the jackets that the ministers wore. And they said it was really cool. Yeah, they said it was light. It felt lighter, so it was actually, because our people, they have the ties on, and they did say that I think, it does make a difference wearing the lighter jackets.
All right, thank you so much for sharing that with us, and welcome back, and hope to see you guys back here next week.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
All right.
Great.
다시 할게요. 잠깐만요. 다 외웠는데.
Sorry. Too sunny and the other. 이렇게요?
At least 180 victims of forced labor during Japan.
Sorry, my microphone just fell, but